The most powerful thing in the room isn't always the loudest person. Science says it's actually the people that are most hyper aware and cognizant of their environment that have the upper hand. And that is a skill that you can learn. It's not a flaw. And I'm going to prove that to you guys in this episode. Welcome back to Clearly Becoming. Thanks for coming back and listening. If you guys don't know, this podcast is all about empowering ambitious individuals by giving them the strategies, tools, and evidence backed insights to help you navigate your journey to becoming. And this is your reminder to start building clarity around who you are, not just about what you do. This is an episode for those who feel that they've seen what a leader looks like and they feel like they just can't be a leader, that they feel vindicated, that they feel like they don't have what it takes from what they've seen from other people, from the traditional leaders, as you would call it. It's also for those who think that they're not qualified to be a leader, that they don't have the credentials. I just want to start off by saying that I thought leadership meant that you had to be the loudest in the room, that you had to have all the answers, that you had to be the most confident, you had to have a presence in the room. And while I do think it's important to voice your opinions and to be seen, you can't always be quiet. I do think that you don't always necessarily have to be the loudest person in the room. I look at some of my leadership inspirations, like Anna Wintour, and I thought I could never be like her because I didn't have the expertise and the knowledge and the power that she had. But the more I understood how she actually built things, like she redefined the Met Gala, she redefined Vogue, she cultivated the fashion industry into what it is right now, somewhere you can explore and be creative and to celebrate fashion. That is when I realized what true leadership is. It's about inspiring others. It's about leveraging other people's capabilities and skills, outsourcing from the external, and also bridging together your internal capabilities in the organization. Being able to utilize all of those capabilities and create something that the world hasn't seen yet. That is what effective leaders do. They're able to take all of these capabilities from other people within and outside the organization to create something that is innovative and unique and special. It's not about you personally having all the expertise and knowledge and what you have to do. It's about really leaning on your community and organization to build something and inspire other people to do more than they think they actually can. And this is really poignant to me because I have so much uncertainty in probably every direction of my life. I don't know where I'm headed. I don't know what I'm doing. I am still navigating my own journey of what I even am passionate about in my career. I have some ideas about what I want to do, and obviously I have some steps on where I in the direction that I'm headed, but there is still so much uncertainty. And something that I realized from the story is that I don't need to have it all figured out to lead. And I don't need to keep waiting for that version of myself who has it all figured up to show up. And the question that we need to start asking ourselves is, what if leadership isn't about having it all figured out? What if it's about what you do when you don't have it all figured out? That's the question we need to start asking ourselves. And so, in true fashion, I went down a rabbit hole on what the research actually says about what makes a good leader and how can I utilize those learnings and leverage them into my life. And I also wanted to just bring in an observation that I had at Wharton is that there are two scenarios. One CEO who completely disregarded the external environment and thought that the business would thrive and saw no setbacks to his organization. And it's not that the organization isn't successful, but there are blind spots to it. They weren't appreciating the other employees. And I thought to myself, would I really want to work in that environment? And then there's another leader who really accesses every single department of the organization, cross collaborates, is able to open themselves up to the possibilities and setbacks that they could encounter, that proactive nature, valuing people from the bottom, valuing every single person in the organization, even those who are maybe at the lower levels, and really wanting to hear their inputs. And then I thought, which organization would I want to be a part of? Would I want to be in an organization that really values only success, performance metrics, and are blindsided by their success that doesn't look towards the drawbacks? Or do I want to be part of a company that values every single employee member, that cross collaborates, inspires creativity? And I just think that's something important to think about as a leader and who you want to show up. Which one do you want to be? And it's not to say that either or is bad or good. It's just, who do you want to become? Who do you align with most? And that's where I feel like you'll start to understand your leadership capabilities and who you want to show up as. And so I'm just going to go briefly into 3 research ideas that I wish somebody had told me or that I knew about in order to formulate my ideas about leadership. The concept number 1 is that your hyper awareness isn't a weakness, it's actually a cognitive skill. And so I learned about the approach inhibition theory, and this talks about when people gain more power, the brain activates those approach tendencies. And this is being more confident, more actionable, having the ability to take on more risks. However, it also reduces the perspective taking and empathy because your focus is more on rewards. However, people with less power, the brain activates what it's called inhibition, this hyper awareness and heightened awareness, this hyper awareness of your environment. And this is where you read the room more, you monitor what you're saying, and also you're super attentive to the social cues that are happening around you. And this is because you're more focused on those punishments, what could go wrong. And while the research calls this heightened awareness an inhibition, I call it intelligence. Because when you're able to really focus on what's going around you, what everybody else is saying, and as I talked about this in my Super Communicators episode, you're actually taking in information and data, which then you can utilize and bounce off of. If you see that somebody maybe isn't talking enough or isn't really being heard, like the tech people aren't really being able to communicate their needs, you can use that. You can see how you can integrate other groups in. You can see how you can bridge those capabilities of maybe the unspoken groups and really implement those decisions into your organization to enhance the growth of the company. And what's interesting about the research is that people with those higher positions, they lose that tendency to take on different perspectives. They don't really read the room. They stereotype because it's heuristic, where they need to place more of the mentality on making sure that the organization is performing well, making sure that they're hitting their metrics. They don't always realize the perspectives of other people and how to bridge those capabilities. And they stop seeing people clearly. And one of the things that I think is good to acknowledge is that power does not equate leadership. Leadership is not about control, it's about inspiring others. And so the question is, are you going to use that hyper awareness, or are you going to keep on questioning yourself for it? 2 is that we've been sold a leadership aesthetic, but the data disagrees. There's this thing called trait leadership theory, and it's about that leaders have 12 specific traits. However, I believe, and research shows, that emotional intelligence, having that self regulation, having that self awareness, having empathy, being able to have those social skills, that actually predicts leadership effectiveness more than those trait theories. Also, the Big Five theory about that ocean concept, having openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, the most consistently linked trait of the Big Five towards effective leadership is conscientiousness. And this is that self discipline, that control, the follow through. It's also not always about being the most confident, that ability to do what you say. And so the leadership aesthetic that we're sold on about being tall and loud and confident and appealing and charismatic, yes, that might be important. However, it doesn't build the sustainable leadership skills that you need. And so the leaders that last are the ones that build things that outlives their presence in the room. It's about the ones who know themselves. It's about the ones who are able to regulate their emotions. And this means truly understanding your tendencies. And it's about people that genuinely care about other people in their organizations, care about their perspectives, care about their skills, care about their growth and where they want to go, and bridge those things together. It's not about having a personality always. Yes, it might be helpful if you're somebody who is disciplined, and it might be helpful if you are somebody who's innately confident and able to communicate well. However, these are skills that you can build. So don't discount yourself if you feel like you don't have those now, because these are learnable assets that you can have. These are things that if you become aware of and you really work to build and grow, you can become a really effective leader. And so concept number 3 is that influence is a science. And more than not, you've probably been using it already. And so research shows that most effective leader influence through 3 channels. One is expertise. People defer to those who have credibility. And this is a heuristic, which means it's a shortcut that the brain uses. Number 2 is trust. Being able to be vulnerable shows strength. It makes you relatable. And number 3 is similarity. We follow people who feel like us. And this doesn't mean that we have to become somebody entirely different just to relate to somebody. It just means people feel more connected to those who they can relate to. And that bridges back to being more vulnerable. And the most powerful influencers from Harvard Business Review talks about being an architect, a bridger, and a catalyst. So an architect being somebody who can can bridge other people's skills and expertise and formulate that into something that is innovative. Being somebody that is a bridger is able to connect people, network people from outside and inside the organization. And being a catalyst is having that co-creation mindset, being able to cross collaborate with other people to create something that is meaningful. And it's also about building a culture and an environment where people feel like it's safe to create and innovate and share their ideas. And so it's really about creating conditions that enable people to do their best work and enable them to achieve more than they thought possible. And so influence doesn't mean manipulation. It's about the credibility plus connection. You don't need a title to build these things. You can build credibility by showing up, being prepared, and being consistent. And you can build connection by making other people feel understood. And so there's this really well-known case study that was started with L'Oreal and UNESCO that wanted to build awareness for AIDS and HIVs. And what they did is they changed the medium of their message. They relied on hairdressers to communicate the message of awareness around HIV and AIDS because clients really trust their hairdressers. They normally talk when you're getting your haircut, you're normally talking to your hairdresser. You feel safe around them because they create a space where you can talk and share your vulnerabilities. And so that's a community that the hairdressers already have that L'Oreal and UNESCO leveraged is because they had that trust. And they also had that similarity because they felt like they could connect with them. They could relate with them. They felt like they understood who we are because you've built those relationships. You normally go to the same one hairdresser because you feel like you can trust them and that you can connect with them on some level. And I brought up this case study because you wouldn't think that hairdressers could be leaders or influence other people, but they do because they have the qualities what makes a good leader. They have that trust. They have that similarity. They have the ability to bridge people and connect people together. Don't rely on that aesthetic leadership that we've always heard about. Don't rely that you have to be the loudest person in the room to influence. You can have other qualities to make a difference. So how can you actually practice this? How can you actually become that leader? Well, you're going to lead in the room that you're currently in right now, not the room that you want to be in someday. So move number 1 is know your signal. Before you can lead anyone else, you have to first know how you read. So before you can lead, you have to know how you read. So when you're in a high pressure situation, how do you respond? Are you more quiet? Are you faster? Does your voice get louder? What happens? Know those approach and inhibition tendencies that I talked about in the research. Leaders know their default. They know how they respond to situations because they have that self-awareness and self-regulation. And instead of reacting to it, they use that awareness to then make decisions from it. And so what I want you to do is go to a trusted person and ask them, what do you notice about me when things are stressful? How do I respond? Write it down and become aware of that. Don't defend it. It's just your signal. And once you have that awareness, then you're able to go from there. Move number 2 is regulate before you respond. And what I mean by that is that your emotional state is contagious. Neuroscience has this concept called mirror neurons. And what it is that our brain cells allow us to catch emotions from other people. And so the leaders that project that frustration your team members will feel that. Other people around you will feel that. I know that when I've been in a room with other people and it's really heightened, I feel myself getting really heightened. And it's because I'm seeing and I'm reflecting what other people are feeling. But the leaders that project that regulation and not the fake ones, like actual regulation, because you can pick up on that fake energy. I know I have. Those are the ones that create that psychological safety. And again, it's about creating that environment and those conditions that are safe for other people to communicate what they need and able to talk about their skills, which then makes the organization better. And so the leaders that project that reactivity create that defensiveness. And as a leader, you're basically a role model for other people. So how you react, how you regulate, that's how other people will respond as well, which is why self-regulation is so important. Identify a trigger that you have in your career landscape. Name it. So one of my triggers is that I tend to not always speak if I don't feel like I have something to say that's worthy. But what if I tried? What if I just tried to speak one time at every single meeting, even if I didn't think it was something that was mind blowing? Because if I gather up the courage each time to say things, then I will practice it. Then I will create more safety around speaking up. Then I won't fear it as much. And then I'll be able to state my ideas that might actually be something that's important for the conversation. And if it's not, maybe it will help stimulate ideas. And this isn't to say that I'm just going to start talking at every single meeting and saying something that maybe isn't important or just saying something to say something, because I think it's really important to be intentional. But I have that other side of the spectrum where I don't talk. And so what I need to do is actually talk a little bit more. And whereas maybe somebody that talks a lot, something that they need to identify with is talking less and being more intentional with what they're saying. So it's always a spectrum. So know where you are on that spectrum. Number three is build the bridge. The most effective leaders aren't the ones who are just good at their job. It's the people that connect people. And as the Harvard Business Review talked about, being a good leader, one of the main things is being that bridger, being somebody who connects other people, networks other people, takes people from outside of their organization and inside of their organization and really bridge those capabilities together, really bridges those skills together. And at this stage, it doesn't mean that you have to attend every single networking event or mass networking on LinkedIn or whatever it is. It means being the person who thinks that, I know this person and they are really good at this thing. And I know this other person and they have the technical skills that could be really synergistic with this other people. I should connect these two people. It's seeing other people's strengths and how you can combine them to create something meaningful. And I really recognized this when I was working at one of my sales associate jobs and when I had to lead the floor. And I was nervous. I was like, what should I do? But when I realized it's about leaning on your team members, I knew somebody who was really good at the fitting rooms. They were so good at just seeing other people, styling other people. And then I knew people who were really good on the floor, people that could spark conversations and discover what other people's needs were. And so I was able to delegate efficiently. I was able to use my team, use people's skills and strengths to create an effective shop floor. And what I want you to do this week is think about an introduction that you could make that creates value for other people, not just yourself. Really start acknowledging other people's strengths and basically use other people's strengths like puzzle pieces and fit together to create that picture that you want, to create that vision and that mission. And so I just wanted to restate that leadership isn't a moment. It's also not a promotion and it's not a title. And it's definitely not about being the loudest person in the room. To practice, there are leadership skills that you can develop. And once you're aware of these leadership skills, which I've talked about, which is expertise, trust, similarity, it's about being an architect, it's about being a bridger and a catalyst and a connector for co-creation. Once you acknowledge all of these skills, then you can start to build them. You can start seeing how you innately have some of those qualities and what qualities that you're lacking that you can concentrate and grow from there. And so utilize your current access and your network and the resources that you have and see how you can leverage them, because you do have the capabilities and qualities that make a good leader. You just haven't been able to clarify what they are. And There's this concept around transformational leadership, and it's about helping people believe that they can achieve more than they thought previously. Leadership is all about inspiring other people. It's not about controlling other people. But in order to help others believe in themselves, you first have to believe in yourself and believe that you have what it takes to become a good leader. So I just wanted to end this episode with a clarity rapid fire question. And so one of the questions is, what is one leadership behavior that you are building right now? Well, one of the ones that I'm building is being somebody that stays regulated when things feel uncertain. As I've talked about, a lot of things feel uncertain in my life. And so I really want to stay present and grounded in the moment where I am, because then I can start to respond from a place that feels more aligned than out of a place of fear. Number two is a belief of leadership that you've had to unlearn. One of the things that I've been talking about in this episode is that I first thought that you needed to have all the answers before you could become a good leader, but that's not true. You don't need to have all the answers. Number three is a leader that shaped you the most and what they actually did. Well, it was Anna Winter for me, not just because of her discipline and her follow through and her expertise, but because she built something that didn't need her to be in the room to function. Number four is, what is your one non-negotiable? Mine is that I show up when I said I would. I actually follow through on my actions because conscientiousness is a really important trait for leadership. And that's something that I want to continue to build. And number five is, who are you clearly becoming? I am clearly becoming somebody who says yes to more opportunities because you never know what can happen. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope this episode was helpful and gave you a little bit more insight into what actually makes a good leader and how you can use that awareness to become the leader that you want. And this was part of the Upskilling Career series. And if you haven't been following, definitely check out those other episodes because they build from one another. Please share this with a friend if you resonated with this episode and spread the message of what it actually takes to be a good leader. Definitely comment down below about some of the leadership qualities that you have or the ones that you want to build or one of the ones that you didn't know were there. Follow Clearly Becoming on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube so that I can continue to grow this community. Next week, we'll be talking all about teamwork and how to be a good teammate. So thanks again for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. And I appreciate each and every one of you. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.